When Ostap hauled in his nets that night, no fish came thrashing out of the dark water. No bream, no mullet, nothing but a strange, living pulse, as if he had dragged up a heart wrapped in seaweed. It beat against the mesh, steady as the waves themselves, and for a moment Ostap felt his own chest echoing back the rhythm. The net shuddered, the boat groaned against the pier, and then an eye appeared. Huge, luminous, not human, not fish, but something in between. In its glassy surface he saw himself reflected, exhausted, dripping wet, a dull knife clenched in his hand. "Don't cut," whispered a voice. It wasn't a voice in the air, it was in the water, in the wood of the boat, in his bones. Ostap froze. He'd never believed the old women's tales of mermaids, of drowned brides who called men to their deaths. He believed in tides, in storms, in the way the sea spoke to him like a clock, telling him when to go, when to hide, when to curse, when to pray. But now the sea had gone silent, holding its breath, and in that silence he saw what was tangled in his net. Not a fish, not weeds, a hand, pale, delicate, with fine webs stretched between the fingers. Droplets slid down the knuckles like pearls. The hand trembled once, and the heartbeat in the net stilled. It had been her throat struggling against the knot. Ostap dropped to his knees. With one hand he held her up, with the other he drew his knife. One stroke, two, and the net sighed, unraveling. She rose from the water, not fully human, not fully anything he knew. Her skin shimmered like glass lit from beneath, veins glowing faintly blue. Her hair wasn't hair at all, but a streaming current alive with sparks of phosphorescence. And below her waist, no legs. A powerful, muscular tail, smooth as polished stone, heavy with the smell of salt. Her nails tore into his shirt as she clung to him. Her mouth moved. A sound, faint but undeniable, filled the night. "It hurts." The words were breathless, fragile, but real. Ostap recoiled, not from fear, but from the impossibility of hearing language in the voice of the sea. Then the boat rocked hard, and her body struck the side with a dull thud. Instinct took over. He threw his coat around her shoulders, cradled her neck, and worked the last of the knots loose until she was free. "Easy," he muttered, as if soothing a frightened horse. "Easy." Her enormous eyes never left his face. In them he saw not the moon, not the sky, but the shoreline, the lighthouse, even the wrinkle carved between his brows. It was too much. He looked away first. When at last the final knot slipped free, she exhaled, a sigh that seemed to reorder the chaos of the night. Something floated up between them, a comb, carved not from bone nor coral, but from some pale, unearthly material. She seized it as though for comfort, then, hesitantly, placed it in his palm. "Take it." "Why?" His voice came out hoarse. "Safer that way." The comb was warm as living flesh, light as eggshell. Along the edges, tiny ridges curled like waves. In the center, marks like letters, but no alphabet he knew. "What's your name?" he asked. She smiled, not with her lips, but with her gaze. Then, carried by the sea breeze itself, came a single word. "Lada." Dawn came with the smell of fish, smoke, and coffee brewed in battered enamel pots. The men sat crouched on crates, repairing their lines, spitting toward the sea, trading old stories about new storms. Women carried baskets of bread and fried dough along the pier. Ostap walked among them, the comb hidden in his pocket. It burned against his thigh as if it were a coal. He was sure everyone could see it, that every glance from his neighbors lingered on the faint bulge in his coat. "How was the night?" called old Mikola, who had survived 3 captains and 2 wars. "Storm brewing on the horizon," Ostap answered. "Mullets on the move." "Tomorrow's Trinity," croaked Baba Hannah from behind her stand of pies. "Don't you fools go into the water. Mermaid week. Mark my words." "Oh, come now, Baba," one of the younger men snorted. "The only things we catch in our nets these days are plastic bottles, not mermaids." "Bottles are man's trash," Hannah snapped. "Mermaids are man's sin." The men laughed, but Ostap's hand tightened on the comb in his pocket until his knuckles whitened. He had no answer for plastic or for sin. All night he had sat on the rocking pier, waiting for her voice to call him back. But Lada had not called. Only the tide had whispered its endless litany, "Come, don't come, come, don't come," until the sky turned pale. That evening he pushed his little boat back into the dark water and rowed to the same spot where the net had torn open the world. The wind smelled of dry grass, carrying heat from the land. Far off, the lights of a steel trawler gleamed. The new vessel of Makar Butillo, master of the harbor, a man who boasted he feared neither storm nor saint. "Don't cut," Ostap whispered to himself as he set the nets again. Minutes passed. The sea was still. Then, almost shyly, he said into the darkness, "Lada?" The water held its breath. Then a swell rose, and within it, eyes. She surfaced so close that he could see the veins beneath her translucent skin, the tiny shells caught in her streaming hair. "You came," said the night around them. "I came," he answered. "You brought it." He nodded and drew out the comb. She didn't touch it, only looked, as if its presence alone was enough. "Why is it safer with me?" he asked. Her gaze flickered. "Because while it rests in your hands, the others cannot summon me. Their voices cannot root inside me. I am freer. Others, the ones below, they do not love what longs for the shore. The shore cuts the water like a blade. And you long for it." She smiled, awkward but radiant. "You freed me. You untied the knot. You are warm." "I am Ostap," he said. "I know." The water breathed back. "You talk to your boat when you go into the dark. You touch the mast like the forehead of a child. You don't curse needlessly, and your shadow does not fear the wave. You watched me." "The sea always watches," she said without shame. For the first time in years, Ostap laughed. They spoke for hours, his questions simple, her answers strange but precise. How the depths smelled at different levels, how fish dreamed, how currents had roads, and if you missed them you could emerge in another place entirely. He told her about the village, about Hannah and her pies, about Makar Butillo and his steel nets that cut instead of breaking. "Steel burns," she hissed, recoiling at the thought. "Water remembers it. Don't carry iron into holy nights, Ostap." "I never do," he said. 15 years, nothing in my boat but wood and rope." "Good." Relief softened her shoulders. Her tail slapped the water like a hand against a knee. Night after night, they returned. Not by agreement, but as faithfully as the tide itself. She taught him the silence of the depths. He taught her the clumsy grace of words. Sometimes, unable to resist, he touched her hand. Her skin was warm. Their fingers intertwined, and the world tilted, listening. "May I?" he whispered once. "You may," she replied. "So long as you do not speak my name on land before dawn." "Why not?" "Because then it will be a cry everyone will hear. And they will come." "Who?" "The ones below." He nodded, accepting it not as a condition, but as truth. Meanwhile, the village buzzed with rumor. Makar's trawler loomed in the harbor, heavy and loud, nets of steel coiled on its deck. "In a week we'll take everything," he boasted at the tavern. "The bay will be ours. What are your strings compared to my nets? One haul, and I'll catch more than you do in a month." "The bay belongs to no one," Hannah snapped. "It's like a church. You don't wall it in with iron." "And don't they build churches with iron?" Makar sneered. "Careful, old woman. Don't choke on your holiness." Ostap said nothing. He cared little for Makar's bravado, but deep inside he feared something else, that the iron would cut so deep, Lada would feel its burn even on the ocean floor. That night he told her, "They'll cast their nets tomorrow. All of them." "Tomorrow is Trinity," she reminded him. "They don't care." Her head bowed. "Then don't go." "If I stay home, they'll take it all. I can't just watch. But I won't go near them. I'll row left, toward the stone spit. There's still a passage there." Her eyes widened. "That is the road of currents. If Makar's nets tear it, the water will bleed. The sea will be wounded. What can I do? Stop them. With words. Words are currents too," she murmured. "But if they fail," her hand went to her throat, where the rope had scarred her skin. "Then cut. Sometimes cutting is saving." He nodded. His knife felt suddenly heavier at his belt. The comb, wrapped in a soft pouch, felt lighter, fragile as hope. Trinity morning dawned green. Women tossed wreaths of wildflowers into the tide, careful not to wade too deep. Mermaid weak. They murmured, best not tempt them. The men crossed themselves before pushing off their boats. All except Makar Butillo. He strode onto the pier like a conqueror, steel trawler groaning behind him. The nets shimmered in the sunlight like coils of barbed wire. He spat, lit a cigarette, and laughed at the old women's warnings. "Today we'll strip the bay clean," he boasted. "What takes you fools a month, I'll take in a day." Ostap shoved his modest boat into the waves, steering not toward the fleet but left, where the stone spit fractured the water into calmer pools. His nets were light, his oars worn smooth. The sea felt uneasy beneath him, restless, as though bracing for something. From the distance came the iron roar of Makar's trawler. The steel nets plunged, slicing downward, sinking deep. The bay shuddered. The road of currents, Lada's sacred path, snapped like a string. "Back, Makar!" Ostap bellowed, though he knew the man could not hear. The sea heard. It rose like a chest before a cough, heaving against the metal web. The nets screeched, water boiling with sparks of phosphorescent fire. Ostap's boat pitched violently. The sound that reached his ears was unlike wood breaking or rope tearing. It was air itself, ripping apart. The current convulsed. The bay was bleeding. "Cut!" Lada's voice crashed into him from everywhere at once. Without hesitation, Ostap struck a flare, red fire lighting the gray morning, and dove overboard. The cold was a fist around his lungs. He plunged deeper, feeling along the stone, and there it was, the net, wound tight around a jagged outcrop. The steel strands glowed faintly as if feeding on the very life of the water. He set his knife against it and hacked. The blade skidded, then bit. Rusty blood bled into the green. He slashed again, his chest burning. Something shifted beside him. He turned. Lada. Her tail whipped furiously, dragging strands of net away without touching them. Her eyes burned like twin lanterns in the deep. The third cut severed the steel, but in the same instant a loop coiled around Ostap's leg. It cinched tight, crushing bone and flesh. His knife slipped from numb fingers. He thrashed, but the net only pulled tighter. Blackness closed around his vision. The sound of his own heartbeat roared in his ears. And then, a hand seized his wrist. Warm. Firm. "Lada." She yanked, pulling him upward with strength that defied her slender frame. They burst through the surface together, gasping, coughing, a length of broken steel trailing like a dead serpent in their grip. Ostap howled, raw alive. Lada opened her mouth to cry, but no sound came. Her eyes went wide in horror as she clutched her throat. Dark patches spread beneath her translucent skin. "My voice," the silence around them said. The iron stole it. He wrapped her in his arms, terrified of how fragile she felt, even with the power of the sea inside her. Her breath rasped faintly against his shoulder. Behind them, Makar's trawler groaned like a wounded beast. Its engines sputtered, lights flickered, and the steel hull shuddered, as if something enormous pressed back against it from below. On shore, the villagers gathered in confusion, some shouting, some praying, some frozen in awe. Ostap saw none of them. He held only her. They swam, half carried by the current, to the cave beneath the stone spit, a place Ostap had known since childhood, hidden except when the tide leaned low. He laid her on the pebbled floor, his coat around her shoulders, hands fumbling helplessly. She tried to speak with her lips. No sound. Then she traced words with her fingers in the damp sand. Voice taken. Iron heard my name. He shook his head. Then I'll speak for you. Until it comes back. Her eyes glistened with something deeper than tears. She smiled, silent but radiant. In the hush of the cave, her voiceless laugh was the loudest sound he had ever known. The cave became their refuge. Days blurred into nights, marked only by the tides pressing in and retreating. Ostap brought her food, fruits, bread, dried fish, but she ate little. Mostly she drank fresh water from a spring on the hillside, cupping it in her hands as though it were treasure. Her voice never returned. Instead, they invented another language. She drew circles and lines in the wet sand. He scratched letters. Her fingers mimed currents and tides. His hands translated them into words. At times she laughed silently at his clumsy shapes, brushing them away with her tail, and he laughed too, until he realized how much he craved the sound of her laughter. He told her stories, of Hannah's stubborn pies, of Mikola's weather-worn curses, of Makar's endless boasting in the tavern. She listened, eyes bright, as if every scrap of human pettiness was an exotic marvel. In return, she showed him the secrets of the sea, how fish dream in schools, how the seabed holds memories of ships that never return, how silence itself is a current if you know how to swim in it. One evening, as the tide crept higher, she wrote in the sand with a trembling finger, "There is a way to walk on land." He stilled. "How?" "Give my name to the one below. Then I will have legs. I will be human. But I will forget. Forget the water. Forget myself. I will be only a woman, not Lada. And me? You will remember." His chest clenched. To him, memory was everything, the tide of his life. To live while she forgot would be a second kind of drowning. "Is there another way?" he asked. She hesitated, then traced a single word. "Foam." His breath caught. "Death." "Return." Without memory. He sat back, the knife heavy at his side, the comb burning in its pouch. Two paths, both cruel. And yet, he thought, there must be a third. At last he said, almost to himself, "Then I'll give my name instead." Her eyes widened. "You? Why?" "Because names are chains. If I give mine to the deep, it can't bind you. You'll walk free beside me." Her fingers pressed hard into the sand. "You will be no one. You will not hear the sea again. You love the sea." He reached for her hand. It was warm, trembling. "I love you more." She looked away, as though listening to something in the dark tide. Then her lips shaped words without sound. "The one below does not take names for free. He takes hearts." Ostap laughed softly, bitterly. "Then he already has mine." Before she could answer, footsteps crunched on the shore outside. Lantern light flickered against the cave wall. Voices, Makar's, rough and certain. "Told you he's hiding something here. I'll drag it out of him if I have to." Lada clutched Ostap's arm. Her fingers dug deep, trembling. Her tail flicked restlessly in the shallow water. Ostap's mind raced. If they saw her here, if the nets touched her again, iron would finish what it had begun. "Hide," he whispered. She shook her head. "Too shallow. No voice. Can't." The lantern light grew. Makar stepped into the cave mouth, steel net coiled in his hands. Two men followed. Ostap stood, knife drawn, shoulders squared, shielding her from the light. The comb weighed heavy in his pocket, a secret heartbeat. "Found you," Makar sneered. "What's in here, Ostap? A secret catch? Or maybe—" His eyes darted past him, toward the water. "A mermaid's treasure?" Ostap raised the knife, not in threat, but in warning, like a man holding a cup of boiling water. "Leave," he said. Makar smirked. "Or what? You'll cut me? Or will she?" He stepped closer. The lantern light crept toward the water. In another heartbeat, it would fall across her pale skin. And in that moment, Ostap knew he had no choice. He pulled the comb from his pouch, lifted it high, and slammed it against the stone wall. It shattered. The sound was no louder than a shell cracking, but in the silence it rang like a bell. The shards dissolved instantly into the tide. Makar froze. Even his men faltered. Something in the air had shifted. Their lanterns flickered, hissed, and went dark. The cave plunged into blackness. Water surged at their feet, soaking boots, hissing against the stone. Makar swore violently and stumbled back, retreating into the night with his men at his heels. Ostap's hands shook. He looked at Lada, terrified of what he had done. But she was smiling, silent, radiant. "You freed me," her eyes said. "Now the deep cannot call me by my comb. They can only call me with what is inside me. And I will not go." That night the sea was black glass. No moon, no stars. Only the whisper of waves curling against stone. Ostap and Lada left the cave together, walking along the spit where the water was deepest. He carried nothing but his nets, now empty, draped like faded banners over his shoulders. She clung to him, her tail dragging in the shallows, her eyes fixed on the horizon as if she could see something he could not. "Here," she mouthed. The threshold. He knew the place. As a boy he had noticed how the current always circled here, a small whirlpool that never moved. He'd thought of it as a friend. Now he felt it watching, waiting. Ostap stepped forward, barefoot on the cold stones, and the tide swallowed his ankles. "Those below," he called into the dark. "I am Ostap. I give you my name. Take it. But give her legs. Give her silence on the land. Let her stand beside me without pain." The water answered with movement. The whirlpool widened, deepened. From its center rose a shape vast and ancient, like a catfish, blind and scarred, its body the color of midnight. Yet Ostap knew it was no fish. It was the sea itself, wearing a mask. It circled them once, then slid closer. The water tightened around their chests, cold fingers searching. It found his heartbeat, pressed against it. He gasped. His whole life flashed like lantern slides. His father teaching him knots, his first catch, the storm that nearly killed him, the quiet nights when he listened to the tide as if it were a language. Then, darkness. The warmth in his chest dimmed, replaced by an emptiness so sudden he staggered. The sea had taken it. His name was gone. The current no longer whispered to him. The smell of salt was just a smell. The pulse of waves was only noise. He was deaf to the ocean. Ostap swayed, dizzy with the loss, but he forced the words out. Now her. The dark shape turned. Lada stood trembling, eyes wide. The water wrapped her, lifted her, and changed her. It happened silently. Where her tail had been, there were knees. Where scales had shimmered, pale skin glowed. She stumbled, unsteady, and fell into his arms, laughing voicelessly, legs trembling like new foals. For the first time, she stood. Her laughter filled the night, not in sound, but in warmth, pouring from her into him. She clung to his neck, hair dripping, eyes blazing. Hello, he whispered. It became their first shared word on land. Life was no fairy tale. In the days that followed, Ostap taught her to walk. First on sand, where her knees buckled and she fell laughing into the surf. Then on grass, clutching his arm. Then on the cobbled path of the village. Each step was awkward, but her smile never dimmed. To him, every stumble was a miracle. He no longer went to sea. His nets hung under the eaves like the husks of old lives. The neighbors muttered. A fisherman who would not fish was as strange as a mermaid with legs. But gossip died quickly in the face of work. Ostap opened a small workshop by the pier, carving oars, patching hulls, shaping wooden combs. The first comb he made was for her. Plain wood, carved with tiny wave patterns. Not magical, not sacred, only his hands in every cut. She held it with reverence, as if it were more precious than the lost one. You remember? She mouthed. I remember you, he said. The sea? Not anymore. Now it's only water. Does it hurt? Sometimes. I hear the waves at night, and I don't know what they mean. Once I knew. Now it's silence. Empty. But then, he smiled, I hear you breathing beside me. And that is enough. She pressed the comb to her chest and nodded fiercely. Then her lips formed a vow. I will learn the language of earth. For you. And she did. She learned the words of soil and roots, the whisper of wind drying laundry, the gossip of hens, the chatter of children. Her voice, slowly, haltingly, returned, not the sea's voice, vast and resonant, but a fragile human one. Each syllable was a gift. Each laugh, a blessing. Sometimes, on storm nights, she would step into the shallows and hum. The villagers thought it was the mast whistling. But Ostap knew. He couldn't hear the ocean anymore, but he heard her. Makar Butalo changed, too. His steel trawler sat rusting at the pier, engine silent. One winter he came to Ostap's door, carrying something wrapped in burlap. He set it down heavily. It was a steel loop, the very one that had crushed Ostap's leg. Rust ate its edges, but in the center it gleamed like an accusing eye. Take it, Makar muttered. Melt it. Bury it. I don't want it near me. Every night it rings in my head like chains. Lada touched it delicately, unafraid. She carried it to the workshop. Days later it became a set of small hooks for lace making. The women of the village bought them all. Steel that once cut now stitched, weaving beauty where once it had wounded. Makar still walked the pier, but quieter, as if he had learned that the sea could listen. The years turned. On the eve of another trinity, they stood together at the shore. Lada, her hair long and tangled with tiny shells, wove a wreath of wildflowers and set it afloat. The circle drifted out, not sinking, not rushing, only being. Are you happy? She asked, her voice soft but sure. Yes, he said, and the word was true. And I, she whispered. He smiled, brushing her damp hair from her face. What should I call you now? She thought for a long moment, then said with a playful glimmer. Marina. The name tasted of salt and sunlight. A bridge between sea and shore. Together they stood, the tide lapping at their feet. A glass bottle washed against the stones, chiming softly as it cracked. For an instant, it sounded like a forgotten name. Lada, carried away in foam. They both looked up at the horizon. The darkness was kind, giving back what it had taken, piece by piece. Ostap slipped his hand into hers. Warm. Steady. Human. The sea was behind them, the land before them, and between the two, just the road of currents that passed through their hearts, unseen but unbroken.
Don't forget to like, subscribe, and share. We've got plenty more stories coming your way.